Go ahead and get started. I want to start off with some introductions on who's joining us in this call today. I will start since I'm already speaking. My name is Holly Brennan. I am a graduate admissions counselor at the Division of Master's and Professional Programs at Brown University, and I'll let members of our Centers for Master Student Excellence team introduce themselves.
I'm Joel Revel. I'm the Deputy Dean for Academic and Student Affairs. Morgan.
Hi, I'm Morgan Orlandi. I'm the Student Engagement Specialist.
Thank you, Joel. Thank you, Morgan. Shortly, we will also be having the Assistant Vice President of our Office of Institutional Equity and Diversity joining us. He's just finishing up a meeting, but Dr. Tristan Glenn will be joining us for the latter half of this presentation. So I think we can go ahead and get started on today's agenda. We will be talking about our commitment to diversity and inclusion that is best, I think, represented in our Diversity and Inclusion Action Plan. That is a university-wide action plan that affects all units. We're also going to talk a little bit about specific initiatives for our master's student population through the School of Professional Studies. I'm going to dive into a little bit of community groups, centers, and offices to know, as well as some highlights from student groups. We do have a current student on the call who will talk about her engagement also in Graduate Student Council, and also a number of events and initiatives that we host through our Master Student Affairs teams and also university at large. And then finally, Dr. Tristan Glenn will kind of overview the important work that the Office of OIED takes care of. Just a couple of housekeeping items. We will be collecting questions throughout the session. You can use the little tool bar at the bottom of your screen to submit them through the Q&A. We do not have chat enabled for this session. There's just too many people to be able to accommodate that. But just usually we get a lot of these questions at the beginning, so we're just tackle these now. You will be receiving an application fee waiver as an attendee of this webinar. It will be automatically attached to the email that you would be applying with, so there's no need to reach out separately for that. That is an automatic process. And as far as program-specific information, we will not be covering that in this session, nor details about the application process. We do host other events and info sessions covering that, as well as application office hours. You're also free to email our general inbox for any questions or concerns regarding the application. So with that said, I think we can start getting started about introducing what is the Diversity and Inclusion Action Plan for the university. I want to go to the next slide, please. So otherwise known as the DIAP, Brown loves our acronyms, and it's just easier to say instead of having a whole mouthful. But the DIAP is really a strategic commitment for advancing the diversity across Brown's institution, both at the university and department unit levels. This was established in 2016. That was based on principles, our mission that we've already been kind of enacting on, but this really serves as more accountable measures with concrete actionable goals, which embody and further Brown's mission of education, research, and service. So as mentioned, our OIED office will be joining us in talking about how they help manage the implementation of these goals with the collaboration and oversight of the Diversity and Inclusion Oversight Board. If we want to go to the next slide, we can highlight the 6 priority areas of the DIAP and some real examples to help you kind of understand how this is represented in real time. So these 6 priority areas of people, academic excellence, curriculum, community, knowledge, and accountability, they really acknowledge the essential goal of ensuring that all members of the community are valued and respected, they feel included, and have equal opportunities to thrive. So in these 6 areas, for example, with people, part of our DIAP phase 2 goal was to double, for example, the faculty from historically underrepresented groups by 2022. And funny enough, actually, today with the Today at Brown announcement, the DIAP had produced a progress report showing that we had actually successfully achieved that goal as of 2022. Academic excellence, also another example that was highlighted in the report that was published today, is ensuring an equitable experience for individuals with disabilities through a more accessible web and technology design. That was a collaboration between our Office of University Communications as well as our Office of our OIAT office. Another third example that I think really highlights how this is implemented at our university level is our areas of community, creating a community that works actively to counteract inequity and injustice and promotes an attitude of mutual respect. I think that really sets us up perfectly for this next slide, which was an agreement proposed by a land acknowledgement working group, including members of the Narragansett Indian tribe, as well as Brown faculty, students, and administrators. This land acknowledgement really is increasing our cultural competency and taking accountability for our university's history, as well as the original stewards of the land that Brown's campus now resides on in Providence, Rhode Island. This goal is also to advance the broader education and meaningful engagement with Indigenous peoples. So this land acknowledgement group included many members of the community, as well as the Narragansett Indian tribe. The land acknowledgement is as follows. Brown University is located in Providence, Rhode Island, on lands that are within the ancestral homelands of the Narragansett Indian tribe. The Narragansett Indian tribe, whose ancestors stewarded these lands with great care, continues as a sovereign nation today. We commit to working together to honor our past and build our future with truth. As much as the history of Brown being in Providence for now over 250 years, this land acknowledgement was only really proposed as recently as 2022. So just to kind of show that as an ongoing conversation, as ongoing initiatives, that there are continual progresses that we aid in trying to engage in cultural competency. And if we want to go to the next slide, we can kind of highlight more specifically how this affects our master's and professional student population. So part of our 3 initiatives, which are not limited to this, but in summarized form, ways that our School of Professional Studies will seek out opportunities to prioritize academic excellence in providing, adequate student and academic support for a diverse population of early career, mid-career, and professional master's students. And in a little bit, we're going to hear from Joel and Morgan about what that looks like in events or initiatives that we hold. So if you want to go on the next slide, please, we can start focusing on the centers, support services, and student groups that our diverse population usually engage in. So if we want to go to the next slide. This is just a sampling of some of the more well-known offices and support centers that we have at the university that cover a wide range of support. So for Brown Center for Students of Color, Office of the Chaplains and Religious Life, as well as Health Services. This is just again, a small example of the main support offices that help achieve our diversity and inclusion goals. So if we want to go to the next slide. A little bit more specifically, as far as the academic and student support services that we have at the university level, we have, student accessibility services, counseling and psychological services, as well as OIED. More specifically, Joel and Morgan are going to maybe speak in a minute here about the Center for Master Student Excellence, as well as other offices like the Sheridan Center for Teaching and Learning that offer programs on teaching, support for research, professional development, and teaching and learning resources. So now that I've kind of set this up, Joel, if you want to speak a little bit more about your work within the Center for Master Students Excellence.
Sure, thanks, Holly. So the Center for Master Student Excellence is a part of the School of Professional Studies, and we are devoted to making sure that any students who are admitted to and attend Brown as master students have the best experience they can while they're here and have the most support that we can provide to help you get through your academic work and get a degree and move on to a job, hopefully. So we do a lot of work with other offices on campus. Internally, we have a team of career and professional development staff who will do things like help you with resumes, help you with cover letters, help you with job search, things like that. And then we also have a team that works on student support really broadly. So if you're here and you're struggling with a course academically, or if you find yourself facing health difficulties or family, challenges, anything like that, we're here to help out. And I know this might not seem obviously related to the topic of today's talk, but um, a lot, I'm from a nearly first generation, or I should say I'm nearly first generation. My mother really struggled to get through college and had to drop out to support her family. And so I was the first person in my family who kind of had a normal college trajectory. And I know that it can be really difficult if you're the first in your family to go to college. You don't have necessarily the kind of what we call, to be fancy about it, cultural capital, but really just kind of the know-how that you might get from parents or relatives who tell you who to talk to, how to talk to your faculty members. So a lot of the challenges that first generation students face are things that we help with in CMX that we're here for. So Brown has great support. And I guess if you end up here, which I hope you will, I would just encourage you to shoot me an email, chat, get to know me and our staff. And then if you need anything, we're here for you.
Thank you, Joel, for that. That was awesome. Morgan, do you want to speak just a little bit about some student affairs kind of related activities that you engage in with our master's population?
Yeah, so a lot of my work is focused on engagement for master's students and encouraging students to look outside of their academic departments and outside of their coursework to grow as a person and connect with the community. So I work with our graduate assistant, Shranya, who's here, and a lot of other campus partners, including some of the centers you saw on the previous slide, to develop programming for master's students. A lot of it is designed to help students sort of navigate Brown and life at Brown, and it's also designed to bring students together so that you're not going through your courses alone, so that you feel like you have somebody to ask questions to, so that you feel like you have a good sense of sort of belonging in the campus community, whether you're here for a year or 2 years or 3 years. So we look at sort of the master student experience, and then we try to address some of it through those programmatic or developmental opportunities. Some of it's geared toward our graduate student parents, because we know it's hard work to work your way through graduate school when you have little ones or teenagers at home. We do a lot with first-gen students. As Joel mentioned, we work with the UFI Center. We also do independent programs like a first-gen grad and med luncheon to bring our students together, because you can't identify who those students are or whether you can relate or not till you're all in one room. We work with our centers and through orientation to let students know what exists, where to apply, how to navigate it, who to ask questions to. So in sum, a big part of my role is to make information explicit, try to remove that culture of like reading between the lines and knowing before you know, and then sharing that with students. And then the other side would be really centered on like community building engagement, so that students don't feel alone, making one friend, meeting one person you can relate to, meeting faculty that you feel like you can trust and have a good understanding of where you're coming from. That's really important to the student experience. That's where my work comes in with Shranya.
Yeah, thank you, Morgan. You do excellent work with engagement in our master's population. And in just in a few slides, we are going to highlight some recent events that we're holding, and I would love to get some insight on Morgan and how the other programs and initiatives that she's launching this year to look forward to our next cohort that's coming in. So if we want to go to the next slide, this is a great opportunity to start talking a little bit more about our identity-based student groups and how those groups also contribute to advocacy across campus, but especially for our graduate students. So I'm going to ask Sharanya here in a little bit, in just a second here, to actually talk about her experience in Graduate Student Council. But I think one of our biggest student groups that gets a lot of attention for our mass population is Graduate Student Council. They are a student government organization of our graduate population of about 2,600 members, and they help foster a sense of community for graduate students across all departments. So as Morgan was mentioning, how her programming helps bring belonging and connectedness across departments, across all identities. Graduate Student Council also is integral in that work. An example of two other student groups that also engage in advocacy: graduate students of color in STEM, as well as graduate African student organization. Their mission is to increase interaction between faculty and students and encourage a pipeline for underrepresented students in STEM to increase their representation. You can also look at a full list of the groups for graduate students using that link there. Maybe we could also drop it in the chat for accessibility. But as far as student groups, they are open to undergraduates as well. So our graduate population typically can also engage in undergraduate clubs and organizations, but there are also a number of, I think, 20 plus master specific groups that help develop that sense of belonging. Especially as graduate students, they're a little different of a population than undergraduate. They're a little bit more mature. They might have families, as Morgan mentioned. So being able to find connection, especially with graduate students being a little bit more independent, is really crucial for not only your personal experience as a student at Brown, but also who you are outside of the classroom. So Sharanya, do you want to just introduce yourself, please, and also speak about your experience at Graduate Student Council on any other groups that you might engage in?
Of course, thank you, Holly. So hi, I'm Sharanya, and I work with the Graduate Student Council as the chair of international advocacy. So I think GSC is a very important resource to be able to bridge that gap between everything that might seem like very foreign or new to you, like the admin or the provost or the president or somebody who you might want to reach out to, but you can't. So the GSC is a very good place for you to come just seek help if you don't know who to reach out to. Also, we have a lot of chairs. Like I work with specifically with international students. We have a chair of master's advocacy. We have the president, we have the vice president, we have a social chair. So what I'm trying to say here is that the GSC is a very good resource for you to just like, one, if you want to engage more with the graduate student community, you're welcome to be a part of the GSC. Or else, if you just need help navigating your time at Brown, the GSC does a lot of community building events and advocacy related events. We're also trying to tackle a lot of issues such as food insecurity. We have a whole pantry here. We have a lot of like essentials like eggs, milks, non-perishables that you could just like go and grab. We do a lot of community building events because everybody, especially as an international student, everybody's journey is very different. And one thing that I found really helped me was finding my people in my community. So I found what helped me most was going to all of these events, and that's where I found my closest friends here at Brown. So like currently right now, I'm looking at a few international student specific issues such as mental health support and international students for PhD students, international students stipends. There were a lot of issues about it coming in late. So we're trying to bridge that gap because domestic students receive their stipend like a little earlier. So it's basically that if you are facing a problem, and I'm also doing like a bi-weekly check-in with international students because problems come up like at weird times. So I didn't want people to go like 2 months without hearing from me. So I'm doing like a bi-weekly Google form check-in, which I hope I will be continuing, or whoever takes on this position from me will be continuing, where you can just like express what issues you're going through, and you can submit that form anonymously also, and I'll see whatever I can do to help support people best. So I think GSC is a very good place for you to start if you want to like just find some people or work with the graduate student community. GSOC and STEM and the Graduate African Student Organization are also very good organizations, which all do a lot of community building and advocacy programs. So yeah, you will find your place at Brown is what I want to say.
Thank you, Sharanya. Yeah, that was really beautifully said. I think that if you are requiring the space and you have a certain identity, there's probably a space and probably a group that is aligned with what you are trying to get out of your graduate student experience at Brown. I think that's a really great pivot to not only a question that we've gotten in the Q&A that I'd love to address now, but also to introduce some of those events that Sharanya was talking about, not only with our Master Student Affairs team, but also events that Graduate Student Council often does in collaboration with other offices, such as the Brown Center for Students of Color, as well as OIED. So if we can go to the next slide, I can answer this question. Does the DEI initiative at Brown only cover US citizens? No, that the DEI initiatives at Brown cover every member of the community, staff, faculty, and students. Even to Sharania's point, that international students, especially if you've never traveled to the United States or never studied here previously, that there is specific programming that starts pretty much right when you come to campus. So international students, for example, are required to attend orientation. It is not an option. You are required as part as trying to provide you with the resources and support for when you first get on campus, but also acknowledging that the international student experience is very different from the domestic one. So part of the DIAB actually was to address this disparity. So as well as international students being required to attend orientation, there's also a graduate student of color orientation, which is more of a broader inclusive initiative to include all members of different identities. So those were pretty recent initiatives as of the last few years, but yes, the DEI initiatives are for every member of the Brown community.
I could also add here, Holly, we
Yeah,
also
please.
very recently added a DEI chair to the GSC. So we have specific one person focused on working towards DEI initiatives. So if you just go on like the Brown GSC website, you can find their contact, and all of us are very open to people reaching out to us. You'll find my contact on the GSC website also. So we are happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Sharanya. I think she just cut out a little bit there, but I did want to include that link that she just mentioned to the Graduate Student Council website, as well as the DIAB website. I failed to mention that the DIAB does have public annual reports, not only showing the progress of our initiatives, but also highlighting the original goals that were introduced in 2016. So those are two public-facing pieces of information that we'd love for you to review if you want to get more in depth about the specific goals and kind of progress of our goals for DEI. So if we go to the next slide, we can start highlighting some of those events that Morgan has helped implement and also shepherd. So Morgan, if you want to kind of speak to, I know these are past events, but maybe looking at what the next year holds.
Yeah, so we hold a lot of events through the division, but there also are a lot of wonderful student organizations and centers holding events. Sometimes we collaborate with them. Like last month, we had a STEM networking event with graduate students of color in STEM, women in physics. It includes a lot of out in STEM students. And there we bring together faculty and students to network, talk about research group rotations, advising and other topics, and it's quite social in nature. And then we also will be holding a first generation grad and med celebration. That group is really incredible. We work with the UFly Center, which is one of our identity centers on campus. And it's really asset-based. I heard Tristan actually speak to this, but we don't look at being first gen as something like to overcome. I think it's such an asset. Students who are first gen bring in incredible perspectives, problem solving skills and experiences to the work that they do at Brown and beyond. So that group really celebrates and acknowledges all of those things about our first gen students and then brings people together. We have a whole month of wellness centered events, and that's for all students across identities and intersections. We're doing a lot of events and activities around navigating life without substances as a graduate student. We have a whole panel next month about networking without alcohol. So that includes our students who are either sober in recovery, sober curious, taking a break, not really interested in how alcohol is like helping or hurting them as they pursue their academic and professional endeavors. And then we also have community lunches and activities like that are really just social in nature. And those are designed to bring graduate students together across disciplines. Something that's really unique or sort of special, in my opinion, about Brown is how unique our students' interdisciplinary interests are and how those interests and skill sets and perspectives come into their work as like a researcher or practitioner. It can be hard for students to get out of the lab or out of the department, maybe out of the identity center that they feel at home at, but it can be useful and important to bring students like out of those spaces and then just together as graduate students. So we try to do things like luncheons or social activities to bring students sort of into one physical space in person to talk to each other, get to know each other. And because the pace of programs is fast, master students are usually only here for 1 or 2 or maybe sometimes 3 years, which is very short. So that's why we do some of those. And then our identity centers, student organizations, there's a disability justice group that's incredible. I saw a question about that in the chat about neurodivergent students. There are all kinds of different orgs that come together collaboratively at Brown to sort of like identify what students' needs are and then create programming to like address or try bringing people together, try to share information in different ways. So that's sort of like a highlight or a high level overview of what's going on, but it's quite active, and a good way to get a sense of what might be interesting to you and what's going on now is looking at our events calendar, and you can filter by interest or by department and sort of see like, what is the Graduate Student Council doing? What are we doing? What are our centers doing? Who's collaborating? And that might sort of give you an idea of like where you fit in at Brown or where you could fit at Brown, and maybe some jumping off points to sort of see yourself here.
Yeah, thank you, Morgan. That was a high level and also incredibly detailed highlight of the work that we do here. And I do, before I pass it off to Dr. Tristan Glenn, I do want to just maybe address any questions in the chat that we can cover before leading over to him. Are there any bridge programs that help transition people into more intensive STEM programs? As far as the between the Sheridan Writing Center, they do offer English language support and also writing workshops and support in that regard, but I'm not sure what other transition or what other, bridge program you might be speaking of, other than English language support or, you know, the number of supports that we just kind of mentioned. If you want to rephrase your question, I'd love to be able to answer it.
Holly, I might also suggest that anybody who's interested in quantitative support, reach out to the program that they're interested in applying to. Obviously, there are a number of programs that are intensely quantitative for which you'd probably need pretty rigorous preparation. But then there are other programs like the MPA that has a statistical component, but also a lot of qualitative courses. And they may well have some internal tutoring resources to help bring people up to speed.
Thank you, Joel. That's a great suggestion. So, okay, I think we can start handing it over to Dr. Tristan Glenn on the next slide.
Greetings and thank you, Holly and team, for welcoming me here and allowing me to connect with this group of students. My name is Tristan Glenn. I am the Assistant Vice President for Inclusion, Campus Culture, and Engagement in the Office of Institutional Equity and Diversity. And in this role, I'm responsible for coordinating outreach designed to address climate concerns here at Brown. This includes oversight of the university's strategic diversity and inclusion plan. And this work, among other things, consists of me working with faculty, staff, and students to enhance DEI learning and to develop networking opportunities for faculty and staff who identify as members of historically underrepresented and other affinity groups. I have a few bullet points on the slide. I won't go into full detail. In fact, some of these have already been referenced, and I'm elated to see that as being the case. So the work of our office broadly fits within these areas. First and foremost, shepherding of DEI efforts at Brown, and that includes oversight of the DAP and the annual DAP report that was referenced in the web page by Holly. And I'm excited to announce that in Today at Brown, the most latest release of our DAP report, which provides community members a update on the progress made towards the goals of the DAP. We're excited to be able to provide that information each year to increase community engagement and awareness of the continued commitment towards DEI here at Brown. We also oversee the affirmative action plan that looks at broadly in terms of how our institution is remaining committed to attending to diversity in our hiring practices. We have our campus climate survey, and then we have our DEI impact report that emerges from our engagement with our DEI partners. Most units within the institution have a individual who is 40% or more of their work context and arrangement is towards DEI. And what we've done is we've assembled what we call our DEI partners, and we work in collaboration with them to extend our efforts throughout the institution. This next component of compliance and oversight, prior to this past January, the Office of Compliance was also in OIED. We've since the university has created a particular and individual Office of Equity Compliance. But our work continues to remain involved in that process through the reporting review team. So at Brown, there are ways in which individuals can report incidences of bias, harassment, and discrimination. Those links to do so can be found on our website and in many other places throughout the institution. But what happens is when reports are submitted, we have a team of qualified individuals who examine each report. Our office has 2 individuals, myself included, who's involved in that initial conversation. We also lead the bias review team. Emerging from the reporting review team, any incident that's determined to be bias related is referred to the bias review team, and then we have a standard operating procedure as to how we respond and support the impacted individuals. Then we also are members of Diversity Inclusion Oversight Board. That is the board that is comprised of faculty, staff, students, undergrad and graduate students who meet monthly to explore and engage with university leadership around the issues related to diversity. The final area in how we support that perhaps might be the most interesting and most accessible to the particular audience here today is how we attend to climate issues on campus. And that is how we support through professional development, consultation, and support. We do this by partnering and supporting student groups, both at the graduate and undergraduate levels, in terms of providing them, their leaders and their membership with support in terms of how to attend to issues of diversity, equity and inclusion, how to support their efforts to create an inclusive climate and environment. We also do broadly DEI education, and we have a curriculum framework that we offer throughout the institution. It consists of 5 modules that work individuals through micro to macro level understandings of issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion. But then we also do specific targeted interventions that are supports and education opportunities that are tailored to particular units. I have been fortunate to partner extensively with the School of Professional Studies and a host of their programs and opportunities through their graduate programs and even with the staff. I mentioned the DEI partners, and then the final thing that I'll say, because I do know we want to leave some time for Q&A. We also support staff affinity groups, and we have currently 4 staff affinity groups, but we're always looking for affinity groups, individuals within the staff ranks who want to explore developing affinity groups as well. We have a process for doing that. So I know I said a lot in a very short period of time. I'm here always to support and engage with community members. We have a process whereby you can, on our webpage, under our who we are and what we do, you can click the link and submit a consultational support form. I respond, thank you for doing that, Holly. Either me or our director, Dr. Nancy D'Souza, responds and sets up a initial 30-minute intake and conversation to learn more about your needs beyond what we ask you on the form. And then that's where we begin the process of supporting and tailoring our outreach to the particular needs of the group who's reaching out to us.
Thank you, Tristan. That was amazing. Yes, a lot in a short period of time. The work of OID is extensive and broad-reaching. I'm really glad that you brought up the workshops, actually. I've worked at one other institution before, and I actually have never had an opportunity through an institution to gain really hands-on workshop level material about DEI. So I'm actually attending a workshop with Tristan right now. I think the third module is tomorrow, if I'm correct. I think I'll be able to make it, but that is just a small example of also our DEI initiatives extending to staff and faculty. And it's not just students, it's how do we increase cultural competency with staff such as myself.
Thank you, and we do appreciate it. Final note on that to extend your comment about the DEI workshop opportunities. Our goal is to essentially just increase capacity amongst members of the community, as well as broaden their understanding and consciousness of their individual contributions to the collective goal of achieving the true mission and vision of our institution. So we're excited to be able to engage with faculty, staff, students, and administrators in this process. We do believe that it is an integral part to achieving true and meaningful inclusion here in our institution.
Yes, thank you. Beautifully said. Now, I'd love to allow for any, now that we have Tristan here and also current student, if we have any kind of specific specific questions for those two people, we'd love to honor their time here and get some more insight that we haven't already mentioned. I know that there's a lot of questions kind of more specific to the application, so I'm going to save that for towards the end, just to keep with the topic here. So, oh, we have a question here. Can you share an example of how university has responded to student feedback regarding DEI initiatives within the last year? That's a loaded question. But yes, if you want to lead that, Tristan, I think that's ties into exactly the work of your office.
Yeah, so I think there are a lot of ways in which we respond. I'll speak to the work of our office particularly. We consistently engage with individuals who are reporting incidences of bias, discrimination, or harassment. Like that is a particular type of response, and it is tailored to the particular conditions or characteristics of the incident that is being reported. More broadly, we also have engaged in more strategic initiatives to attend to issues of anti-Arab bias, Islamophobia, and anti-Semitism through our community outreach and support. Our office have partnered with faculty members to do particular workshops. We have also held Courageous Conversation series to students this past spring. I'm extremely excited about the work that we're engaging in with faculty and with a group of cohort members throughout the institution in terms of increasing knowledge and understanding of issues related to anti-Semitism, anti-Arab bias, and Islamophobia. Through this initiative, we've partnered with two external agencies and organizations who will come in and do intensive workshop experiences for us. We'll gather information and data on that experience and looking to broaden that support throughout the institution. And then we also just remain in conversation with students to help them to understand and make transparent our efforts and our initiatives to support them in their efforts. So that was a broad question. I took my pass at providing some level of clarity or answer to that in terms of the work that our office leads specifically in relation to DEI across the campus.
Thank you. We do have a follow-up question. Are there opportunities for students to be involved or work with OIED?
Yes.
Question.
And I'm glad that question is asked. So we are actually in this process in this semester, engaging in a process of imagining or designing what we hope to be, the title may change, so don't hold me to this title. We're looking to develop a cohort of diversity fellows Diversity Excellence and Inclusive Excellence Fellows that we will gather a group of students who will engage with us along the ideas of a project and ways to support particularly the students across the institution. So that process will be forthcoming. Dr. Nancy D'Souza is engaging with many of our student leaders in hopes of trying to identify what will be most attractive. I'll be honest, we're a part of that is how do we attract students and make it appealing to them to commit to engaging with us for a defined period of time, to engage in some of our DEI curricular and workshop opportunities, but also identify ways that they can critically execute programming and initiatives that directly impact the students across campus.
Thank you. That is really exciting. And I think for our next cohort of master students that by the time fall runs around, that there will be an opportunity to start engaging in that kind of work. So there's a follow-up question here about being hired for paid positions at OIED. That is also probably in the pipeline, or at least an aspiration, but more to come.
More aspirational than pipeline oriented. I will be honest.
Well, we can be optimistic. Yeah, a lot of that has definitely sparked some other conversations in this chat. So those opportunities are not yet available, but definitely an aspirational goal.
Yes.
Few other application specific questions here. I do want to again honor Dr. Glenn's time here and also our current students. So if we don't have any follow-up questions for these two individuals, then I would love to kind of give this time back to them, and then we can start tackling this Q&A here with the few questions that we have left. One more question for me. In what ways does the university encourage open dialogue about controversial topics? This is a perfect question. That highlights definitely our mission of having ongoing conversations.
For me?
Yes, please, please.
Oh, so one of the things that we hold to be true is that many of the issues related to DEI that we continue to have to contend with within our community emerge from either an unwillingness or lack of capacity to have conversations around issues that are difficult to talk about. So one of the things, so understanding that in our workshop professional development series, we embed opportunities for individuals to build capacity to have courageous and brave conversations around these issues. So what is clear to me is that individuals, even those who, many individuals aspire to have these conversations, but also seek support and opportunities to be assisted in framing the conversations. So in our workshops, we explore moving from a safe to a brave space. We also explore the importance of actually operationally defining what we mean when we're talking about power, privilege, difference, microaggressions, and a whole host of other accompaniments to the opportunity to have conversations. And then we do a deep dive in it. We explore a model for having courageous conversations. So the hope is that we cultivate capacity and then hold the space for these conversations. And we equip individuals with schema, vocabulary, and conceptual frameworks to bring into the conversation to ensure that what we're having is productive dialogue and not parallel conversations. Meaning and thinking that we're talking about the same things, but fundamentally we're not, because we're defining them differently. So that's the theoretical, pedagogical underpinning of the series that we've cultivated and provide for the institution. We do that work, again, in student groups. We do that with faculty. We do that with staff in hopes of when we bring individuals to campus, like the Islamic Network Group, like Project Shema, to talk about issues of anti-Semitism, issues of anti-Arab bias, issues of Islamophobia, issues of anti-Black racism, that we have cultivated the capacity, we have the skill, we have the schema, we have the vocabulary to have these conversations. So what I will say is that we are moving the work forward to increase opportunities. But what I will also say is that there's room for more. So the goal is that as we equip individuals to have these conversations through our facilitation, individuals are going back into their respective units and broadening that outreach and having those conversations about the real issues that are tied to the lived experiences of individuals in their particular contextual situational context and the work that they do.
Thank you. Thank you for that explanation. There's another question here that I wonder if you can speak on, Tristan. Any sort of kind of specific initiatives or programming for neurodiverse students that might struggle with ADHD, for example?
So what I am pleased to say is that my work, my professional work began as a special education teacher. I have a bachelor's and master's, and my doctoral work is in curriculum instruction with a focus on special education policy. So I'm also excited to articulate that we do work closely with student accessibility services. And we're actually engaging in a process of identifying a faculty member to partner with to develop a workshop opportunity that addresses issues of accessibility throughout our institution. So we're at really the beginning stages of that work. Again, much of our work that we try to do is in response to issues as they're reported and emerge organically throughout the functioning of our community. So I'm excited, and I share my background to say, as an individual who understands the lived experiences of people with disabilities and the need to address issues of accessibility to ensure that they are fully and meaningfully included, both instructionally in their course experience, but also in their lived experience throughout the Brown community. So we are absolutely looking to do that, as well as provide opportunities for skill building and development in relation to individuals who are identified as being veterans of armed services as well.
Thank you. Thank you for that answer. I think I had mentioned it actually at the beginning of this presentation, but something as simple as like web accessibility, that was actually part of the DIAP Phase 2 goal. And again, with the Office of University Communications and OIT, they collaborated because they took feedback from our students, from our community, that web accessibility was lacking, that it was not inclusive or equitable. And that is an actionable kind of goal that we achieve for not only our neurodivergent population, but also our students with disabilities.
Yes, and always we one of the greatest strategies that we have in OID that's accessible to us is the ability to partner and collaborate. So at any moment, and that's not solely confined to or restricted to staff and faculty. We also look to partner with students who, through their own experiences, can help us to move work forward by increasing our awareness of how these things show up in our community. So any student that's here, don't hesitate to reach out directly to me and explore opportunities to extend the work in ways that support the broader goal of inclusion and belonging.
Okay, we do have a few minutes left here, but if we still want to submit your questions to the Q&A, a lot of really great questions for this session. But if not, then I will let Tristan and Sharanya continue their workday. But thank you both for your collaboration and attendance in this panel. We love to hear not only student experience, but also the incredible work that OIED does. So thank you both, and for also my colleagues in the background with the Q&A. We are still going to sign on here and address any kind of lingering questions, but thank you both.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank
Stay in touch.
you. Thank you for having me.
And this question just did come up a decent amount, so I just want to make sure that I addressed it to the group. Your application fee waiver is an automatic process. As long as you use the email address that you registered for the session and you use that to apply, it'll be automatically just honored. So there's no additional code. If you have any issues with that, of course, please email us at masters_admissions@brown.edu. But yes, you will get a application fee waiver as an attendance in this session. And unfortunately can't talk about any real program specific application requirements here. So I see someone had mentioned having a cumulative GPA and talking about biomedical engineering. I will say that 3.0 is generally our competitive GPA minimum. Our application process is holistic, so there is not necessarily one piece of your application that'll automatically deny or admit you. But if you do have a GPA that is lower than our average competitive GPA, then it really needs to have a strong justification for that in either your personal statement, with your letters of recommendation, something that can showcase that you are ready for graduate level work and will be successful in that. So 2.5 is below our minimum GPA, but of course circumstances might allow you to be a competitive applicant regardless. Without looking at your application, it's hard to say. How long is the application fee offer valid for? It's valid for this upcoming cohort. So as long as you apply before the application deadline, it is valid until the next application cycle. And we do have upcoming sessions specifically for computer science for all of our programs. I will drop a link in the chat for our master's events. Not only are we hosting more of these portfolio level events about living in Providence, information for international students, what it's like to be a student in and outside of the classroom. So I'm going to drop that link in the chat. You can also look at more program specific information sessions for your program of interest. And we cover master's level information here, so unfortunately can't speak to PhD or doctorate level information. Definitely recommend looking at your program of interest and contacting that program directly. They might have information sessions that we're not aware of, but we really cater towards master's population and not PhD. So I think that covers all the questions for today. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you for your participation and coming to talk with us about diversity and inclusion at Brown. If you have any other questions, please feel free to email us, and have a lovely rest of your day. Take care.